Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Joining us today is Jessica Hallahan. Now, Jessica was hospitalized at age 24 because of burnout. And she left that place in her life and built a whole business to help other people struggling with burnout. Jessica, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
This is amazing. Now, just to give a little bit of background, you got your master's in public health from Westchester University. You then became a speaker and a stress management health educator. And really, I want you to have plenty of time. And I'm interested in what you founded called Journey to Yourself. You even have a podcast by that name. And so tell us really, I'm interested in so many things. So we're going to get to all of it. We're just going to kind of weave in and out like we always do on Phoenix and Flame. So it's sort of like, let's just go back to you're 24 years old. What was going on in your life? Because I think we can all say, because on Phoenix and Flame, we're very honest. We're just very blunt and we're honest. We might as well be, right? We might as well be honest because we're all walking this journey. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do my podcast, was because I kept hearing people in my office that were saying, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, but I feel like I'm the only one, Dana. And I would know that they weren't, but see, people, they don't talk about it. They walk down the sidewalk by the mall, or they walk down the hallway, and they look all like they're all together. Well, they're not. None of us are all together. Let's just be brutally honest about that. And so this is a really fabulous platform just to say, gosh, this is me. This was my experience. So tell us, kind of bring us alongside you. What was going on in your life? You were 24 years old and it got so bad, because we all know that hospitals nowadays, especially with insurance and everything, they don't allow you inpatient unless you are pretty bad. Now, back in the day, it was different, but now it's, they're not going to allow that because they're not going to pay for it. So what was going on with you at 24? You was burnout. How did that happen? What was your life like?
Yeah, so the nutshell story goes, I was leaving my 9 to 5 and I was driving home to go to my part-time gig at night as a bartender. And typical fashion, I'm super tired, super exhausted, can't keep my eyes open. And I get into a minor car accident. And my family said, this is it. You have to go to the doctor. And, to listeners, you're going, you just fell asleep at the wheel, like it happens. Well, no, amongst so many other things, such as I was covered in hives. I lost a lot of weight, maybe like 20 some pounds in a month. My knees were really swollen. They couldn't fit into my jeans. The list went on. And I'm from Pennsylvania, and we have this fun disease called Lyme disease, which we get from ticks. So ticks, they come on you, they're really tiny, bite you, we don't even know. So I got tested for that, I don't know, 110 times. That was exaggerated. But, yeah. Thyroid disease, diabetes. I mean, you knew when I was getting tested for it, I'm going to this doctor, that doctor. And finally, I was just punched over in so much pain because I wasn't going to the bathroom. So they finally sent me to the doctors, and now I'm at the hospital for like a day or two. And the list went on. And finally, I go back to my primary. I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, this is it. I'm 24 years old. Heads up, guys, no kids. And I don't understand. So he's looking at all the results, and he's like, okay, let's just start from the beginning. What is your day-to-day like? I'm like, I don't know. I'm a boring 24-year-old. I wake up, I work out, I go, I take care of the dogs. I have a house. I'm in a relationship. I have a full-time job. I have a part-time job at night. I had to go to full-time grad school. I volunteer on the, and he goes, stop. What are you doing? Where are you making time for yourself? I said, no, I eat healthy and I work out. Check. He goes, no. You're not making time for you and processing your thoughts and feelings. And so it was such a reality check of, oh, I have to like sit and think and feel. Oh, this is a game changer.
Kind of the things I do.
I have other things to do. I have to take care of other people. My friends need me. My relationship at the time needed me. Like, what do you need? So, yeah, that was in the beginning of the reality check for sure.
Now, you bring up a good point that I think that it's worth kind of hovering over for a moment, is that we, and especially women, not just women, but especially women, we have a tendency to put ourselves last. And there's some women out there, and I've run into them before. Some of them are in my family, some whatever. You know who you are. Anyway, so they they kind of do the martyr thing. Like, oh, look at all I'm doing for everyone. And it's, I'm going to put myself last. And that's a badge of honor. Um, I would really like for us to hover over that for a moment, because I know there's got to be some listeners out there that are either struggling with that and kind of wrestling with that idea, that archetype, and or they know someone in their family or their friend group or whatever that is acting in that way around them. So what are your thoughts on how we tend to just put ourselves last?
Oh, it's why one of the reasons why led me to where I was at 24, right? The other thing is what I tell people, because one, we think we have to do it, and that's a piece within itself in 1 second. But the other thing I tell people, if typically when and it's not everybody, this is just, making a genre conversation now, is that sometimes when we are trying to do things for others, we kind of want that in return. Well, I'll do this so then they'll step up for me, and I'll do this so then they want this out of me, or I'll do this so they love me this way, right? And, again, very general outlook. But my mindset is, if I don't make time for me, who will?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's on me. If I want to go out to get sushi and my husband's not a sushi eater, okay, well, I can either kick my feet and say, well, I do all this stuff for you, or I can go take my own self out, right? So I need to start to make the standards for myself. I set the standards for how others are going to show up for me. So if I'm saying that I'm not worth to hang out with my own self for 2 minutes, who's going to want to hang out with me for 2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to set those standards for myself, and I need to start to take care of my own self.
That's fabulous, Jessica. And you just hit the nail on the head. One of the things that I find myself chatting with people about, especially when we're doing boundaries training and that kind of thing, is like there's one person on this planet who has been given the responsibility of keeping you together. Just one. It's nobody else's job to keep us together. It's our job. And if we give up on that, there's no one there to do it. It's no one else's job. And you mentioned like the transactional kind of thing, which you see that a lot. And in a healthy relationship, it does truly goes back and forth. Sometimes we're the recipient of the support and the encouragement and the lifting up. And then other times we're supporting someone else and we're doing something for someone else, and it weaves very nicely back and forth. But let's just be honest, Jessica. Sometimes we're in situations where the relationships maybe aren't necessarily all that healthy. Sometimes we're in relationships with people that are somewhat self-absorbed or narcissistic or just dysfunctional. Maybe they've got a lot on their plate. They just can't deal with everything. And so we have to watch out for ourselves. How do you feel like in terms of stress management and dealing with burnout, the whole concept of transaction? Because I'm looking at it through a boundaries lens. And like you said so beautifully a few moments ago, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this for you, which means then you in turn are supposed to do something for me. Well, that's not our call to make. If we want to do something for someone else, that's our choice. But that doesn't mean the other person is obligated to do it back. It'd be nice, but, wouldn't it? And culturally appropriate most of the time. But let's just be real about this. It's not to be boundary wise. We're either going to choose to do something for someone or we're not. That's our choice. That's our action. Whether or not they do it back is on them. So I'm wondering, from your perspective and from your experience, how do you feel like this transactional dynamic that people have, this transactional expectation, impacts their ability to manage their stress and deal with burnout?
So tell me if this answer, because this is where my brain just went. So let me know if this supports your question. My brain just went to thinking about how when we are in these transactions, these boundaries, these accountability, this awareness, all these different names, we have to really love and care for ourselves for who we are today. Right. So I have to love and respect for who I am today. So a lot of times when we're thinking about these transaction things, like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Eventually our relationship will grow, and then we'll be this person, or I'll be this person at work, or I'll be this kind of mom, right? We're doing it for this future self, or like this future relationship that I want it to be in. So before that even happens, we have to really love and care who I am today, right? So I have to have that awareness of, if I stop growing, if I stop learning, this is it. This is who you get. That's it. Well, I love myself. that husband of mine, that best friend of mine, if they didn't have that nice fancy job, if they didn't keep growing and bettering themselves, would I still love them for who they are? If I bring this part up, if I just love them who for I am, it takes that pressure, that control, which we love to do when it comes about that stress. When we're thinking about stress, when we're thinking about burnout, we like to be in control of certain things. We like to be in control. And I don't mean like we try to be in control of people, but that transaction. If I do this, then this will happen.
Mm-hmm.
If I act this way, then this will happen, right? So how am I bringing myself back to here and now and just loving what I got going on here and now?
I love that. And I'm also a huge fan of mindfulness, just being in the moment. Because, Jessica, to be honest, and I think we both agree, we don't have anything else but right now. And for you guys listening, whatever happened to you 10 minutes ago is gone. And
Yeah.
what's going to happen even 5 minutes from now, we would like to know. We would like to think that we know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. And most of the time, we're going to be right, but you can't guarantee it. The only reality that we have is in this very moment. And when you bring it down to just this very moment, life gets a little bit simpler in terms of what are we actually having to manage versus something that happened 15 minutes ago, something that may or may not happen 30 minutes from now. Sometimes all that seems to take our brain space away. It just takes our mental focus and just divides it up, divides that pie in so many slices. We don't have enough left to deal with what's happening right now. That's what I'm hearing you say. Just be loving ourselves in the moment and appreciating who we are right now in this moment.
Yeah. And I like that you brought the word mindfulness because I think, with social media and things like that, it could be a good buzzword. So I love that it's like, yes, it's the present moment, the awareness, all that fun things. The other piece, the definition of mindfulness is without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're talking about like, okay, it happened 10 minutes ago. I'm not going to judge myself for it. I'm not going to judge them for it, right? We're all human. We have all of these emotions. We all make mistakes. We've all said the wrong thing. We've all said hurt somebody that we didn't mean to hurt, right? And I think we have to let go of that pressure of going, I can no longer judge myself and I can no longer judge others.
Which, okay, this is awesome. So, because the more I knew this was going to happen, so it's just like the more you're talking, the more I'm thinking about stuff. So you have an excellent point about judging. I'm not a huge fan of judging at all, ourselves or anybody else. I don't see what it gains, right? And furthermore, when we start to judge ourselves, we what I call jumping. We jump in the shame shower, and we jump in the shame shower. Then we don't want to face our stuff because we're full of shame, and then we can't change what we're not even facing. So that just goes just a luge down to a bad place. But here's the thing: when we're dealing with other people, we don't need to judge someone, right? They're walking their own journey, they're in their own yard. But what we do need to do is set boundaries because sometimes we're in relationships with people, maybe they're coworkers, maybe they're friends, maybe they're families members, and they're behaving in ways that are possibly dysfunctional, possibly disrespectful. Maybe they're dealing with their own issues and they haven't worked through some things and it's kind of splashing out on us. So it's sort of like, no, we don't need to judge anyone because we haven't walked in their shoes. We don't know what's going on inside of them. We don't know what their past was like. And we have to set a boundary because people think, oh, well, I'm not going to judge. They had a hard, and I hear this in my office sometimes. Oh, they had a hard childhood. I'm like, yes. And they're a grown ass adult right now. They need to accept. So there's a difference between making excuses versus explaining. And we have to put that boundary line. So in terms of you're dealing with people that are trying to manage their stress, in terms of dealing with burnout, and we're talking about boundaries with ourselves, but right now at this moment, we're talking about boundaries with other people, whether it's a coworker situation, whether it's a family situation, because it weaves back and forth. We don't turn into one person at home and someone else at work. We are the same person that is inhabiting both those spaces. So lifting both sides up helps both sides. So what are your thoughts on setting a boundary with someone? You're not judging them, but have you seen situations or have you talked to clients who had situations where maybe they weren't judging, but they also didn't set a boundary and what happened there? Or maybe they did set a boundary and how that played out for them?
Yeah. I think boundaries are amazing. And I want you guys to hear that like boundaries are amazing. They're really important. We definitely need them. I think the one thing we don't always talk about with boundaries is what happens to the relationships. And so I think what like to bring up when I talk about boundaries is that I've set boundaries and I've lost relationships because of that, right? The thing is, when we do that, what happens to us? And what we don't realize is that, yeah, we might lose that relationship and that sucks and that's hurtful. But there's a part of you that gets to grow and become this version of yourself that you weren't before. And you get to learn these new things and you get to experience life differently and you get to grow new relationships because of it. And you kind of talked about that give and take transaction relationships when they actually come, right? It's no longer begging for that relationship to be one way. It's no longer going, oh, if they just did this and they just did this, you're not having it because there's the boundaries, right? So I think when I talk about boundaries, what I like to people to understand is that it's a process. It's not that I just set a boundary and everything's gravy and everything's great and now I get to go play in the rainbows and butterflies garden. It's not how it works.
Where's that?
Like, well, how it works, right? So it's understanding that when I set boundaries, things are going to change. But I always like to look at change as growth. I get to grow differently. And that is just the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome. Because then, whether you're in a work situation and you're trying to function well on a team, you're trying to. There's this project that you've been dying to do forever and ever. Let's say, for example, there's a coworker that, for whatever reason, keeps dumping. Let's say keeps dumping his work on you.
Mm-hmm.
And we all try to be team players, and we all understand, if this back and forth thing, sometimes maybe he had something to do. I'm happy to help you out. I'm happy to be a team player. Let me jump in and help you. I've got some extra time. Let me, I've got my stuff done. Let me help you with your stuff. But we're talking about something that's a pattern. If that coworker keeps dumping and dumping and dumping, just because he doesn't want to do it, because he wants to go play pickleball, right? And his teammates are waiting for him, but he hasn't really maybe allocated his time very well during the day. He hasn't been very efficient during the day, so there's still stuff that he's supposed to do. If you don't have healthy boundaries and he keeps dumping and dumping and dumping on you, so you're not getting home until after supper time, and your family, your partner, your family is not liking this very much, right? Then if you have to place a boundary with this individual, what I'm hearing you say is, number one, if that relationship ends, what have you lost? Is my question. Specifically, what exactly have you lost? Because true friends or true, your coworkers that are on your team working with you, they're on your side too. And they will hear your no. They will hear you say, I cannot do this right now. And they will hear that. But people that won't hear that from you really they're not your friend. They don't have your best interest at heart. And also, in that situation, I'm thinking someone could actually have the time to work on this wonderful project they've been dying to do, this research project that they really had an interest in at work, and they really think that they know what the outcome is going to be, but they need the data. They need to put in the time to do the research. They need to reach out to the clients, but they can't because they're always being dumped on this extra work by this other coworker that wants to go play pickleball instead of doing his job. What are your thoughts on those kinds of situations? And have you experienced that, or have you seen or heard of other people that have gone through similar situations?
Yeah, I think with those kind of situations, one, it's so real. We all have been there in some form or fashion. And I think the other thing is going back to not judging yourself, but being aware that you kind of created that habit. You allowed that boundary to be broken. You set that standard.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to break that boundary, when Bob emails you, is like, hey, can you get this piece of the project done? And it's 4:30 on a Friday, and you're like, no, thank you. You can then say, hey, sorry, I love helping you out. This time I can't. Right? So it's not that. I think a lot of times we think, well, I have to think of an excuse and I have to get this done. It's not, if it's not your job, you don't have to do it. And again, kind of to your point where you're saying earlier, yeah, of course, like I want to help people. I would love when people help me, but it's not an all the time thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's become a habit, a ritual, a consistency, you have now taken on a new piece of work. You've now added something else to your name tag, right? There's a difference. It's not just, hey, Bob is leaving for vacation. He's like, oh my God, you know what I didn't get to do? I never emailed, ABC company. Can you just email that company and like wait for them? Yeah, of course. Right. So it's not just saying no all the time. It's becoming aware when I start to feel that friction, and when that happens, like, oh my God, here comes Bob again. He's going to ask me to just work again. Okay, well, were you the one that kept saying yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were, right? So it's that accountability, that's awareness. If you were able to say yes this whole time, you can also now say no.
That's it. That's a fabulous point. We train people how to treat us. And so if there's a coworker that keeps doing that, like to your point, it's because we've trained him to do that. And really, from your view, do you think that's a helpful thing? And the reason why I'm asking is that on the surface, people that tend to behave in enabling ways, right? On the surface, it looks really kind. It looks very nice. But I challenge that. Under the hood of that, it's not kind or nice. It's enabling, and it's not helpful. And I'm just kind of wondering, as you think about the example that you just gave, what are your thoughts on someone that does continue to do that? What are they what kind of work environment are they contributing to? What kind of dynamic are they contributing to? And how does that play out with stress and burnout?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning of like typically women, we will add more and more to our plate, right? So I want the promotion. I want them to realize that I'm a hard worker. I want them to know that just because I have kids at home, that I can still show up to work every day. I want them to know that I can do that presentation, right? So we take on more work to try to prove that. When in reality, I just need to prove what I'm doing. Now, with this, again, if somebody's asking you to do something out of your task and stuff like that, I'm not saying say no, because I've learned a lot of things because I've stepped out of my comfort zone,
Mhm.
right? I've done different groups. I worked at different companies. I met new people because I tried something new, even though it was out of my job description or my comfort zone. So yes, taste it, go taste that new thing. But if you're starting to feel that annoyance, if it's not making you happy, and what I mean by that is if I'm starting to feel my eye twitch, if I'm starting to get sick, if I'm starting, if every time Bob calls me, I'm like, oh my God, hi Bob, right? That is my awareness, my accountability. I have to start to go, okay, what was I trying to get out of this? What do I want from this? Do I have to have this self check-in? So say yes if it's in your bandwidth. If it's not, then it's not time for you right now. And that's okay. There will be another opportunity, right? But have those check-ins, right? And that kind of goes back to those boundaries of making time for myself. Am I happy? Do I still want to do this project? Am I actually really good at it? Or have I been using ChatGPT for half the stuff? Like, right? So it's just having that check-in because yes, say yes to things and then check in, right? Maybe I like being busy. Maybe I like that maybe I need this distraction right now because my mom's really sick. So this distraction is really perfect right now. So that's fine. But maybe mom's down better. And now I need to go spend time with her because now she's out of the hospital. But now I picked up this project. Okay, well, now I communicate.
Mhm.
Now I set different boundaries. Hey, I loved working on this project for so long. I have to go be with my mom. How can we find a balance that I can help with this project, but I can't do as much?
Mhm.
Right? But I have to have that own awareness and that own accountability because Bob's not going to know. It's not Bob's job to know mom's home now. So I was just using it as a distraction. That's not Bob's job. Like we said in the beginning, I'm an adult. I speak up.
That's it. I mean, you have just like teed up about three different things. I so as you're talking, I'm just like writing stuff down. So one thing that you're saying, well, actually, I wrote three things down: check in, flexibility, and mind reading. So I really think it's a neat thing to point out. What you're saying is that boundaries are flexible and they're meant to be. It's not like some big, huge, and this is in my keynote, some people have this myth that boundaries means you're running around screaming no at everybody, or you've erected this 10-foot tall cinder block wall. That is a myth. That is not effective boundaries. It's more like what you're describing, that it being checking in with yourself. What is your life like right now? Like you mentioned the example of, your mom is sick or whatever like that. You want a distraction, or maybe someone is just they're starting out at a company. They don't have a lot to do and they're like really eager. They want to really sink their teeth into some other projects and they have the time and they're so excited and they're so passionate. Then they want to do that and they want to work extra and they're really like maybe they're working at a business that is really aligned with their mission in life and they're so excited to do it. And they don't care to do like meet someone for drinks or for coffee or outside of office hours because they're so jazzy about the project and what they're working on. But then something else could happen, like you mentioned. And then all of a sudden they can't do all that. So I'm hearing you say check in with yourself, what's going on in your life, and flex your boundaries back and forth however you need to do that. And also, it's really important, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit more information about what happens when people are expecting others to read their mind.
I like to go old-fashioned with this and go, we can't assume because we all know what happens when you assume. And do you mind if I curse a little bit?
I curse. Go ahead.
Okay. When we assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
Mhm.
So if I'm expecting mind reading, I'm now assuming. And we make an ass out of you and me. We don't have time for assuming. Assuming doesn't get us anywhere. We have things to do. We have to check on the kids. We have to check on the mom. We have to get this promotion. When I'm assuming, I'm wasting time.
And it's so, I'm wondering from your experience, whether personal or clients that you've worked with, how many times are dynamics at work really, it creates a snafu because people are not communicating. Maybe they're holding some upset. Maybe they had a conversation with a boss or a coworker that really upset them and they're like walking around with it inside and they get all passive aggressive and they go down to the break room and they're slamming coffee cups around and they're slamming the refrigerator door shut and they're like, giving people the stink eye when they walk down the hallway, but they're not actually saying why they're doing this. They're not communicating it to the person. And so they're expecting someone to read their mind. And meanwhile, they're acting all, passive aggressive. What has been your experience with that? Or like I said, are people that you've dealt with?
Oh, that never happens. No.
Yeah.
There's a couple things. So statistically, 80% of our work stress is caused by miscommunication. So just from not communicating, from miscommunicating, from a tone, from my body language, from like all the things, right? 80% of our work stress comes from miscommunication. So just think about how much of our stress just at work could decrease if I just, I don't know, opened my mouth in an assertive way, said what I needed, spoke up, right? So some of you guys might be listening like, no, I speak up. I say what I want. Great. Are we saying it in an effective way? Because there's a difference, right? Am I watching my tone? Am I watching my body language when I'm speaking to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are watching our body. What's the rule? It's 55% of your body is when we communicate, it's through 55% of our body language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm having my hands crossed during this whole interview, I'm like, Jess, you're right. Like, let go, relax. You good over there? Right? If I had an attitude problem, like, well, you shouldn't be stressed. You just stop being stressed. Have your boundaries. I'm like, okay, guys, well, we're just going to cut this interview short because she seems to have an attitude problem. Right? So thinking about how I'm communicating. And if I am that person, because I have a couple clients that are like this, well, I just need to process. Okay, great. I think processing and putting your thoughts together is amazing. Am I giving myself time or am I doing what you just said? And am I stomping around going, well, I have to process, so you have to now deal with me processing. Well, I have my own stuff to deal with. I don't need to deal with you because you are dealing with things, right? So go back to taking accountability. Hey, Dana, listen, I just had a meeting with the boss. I'm showing up the best I can. I'm here. It was just a really long meeting. I just, give me a second. Let me try to regroup and get refocused. A little bit different, right? So I'm still processing. I haven't figured everything out that I want to say and do and act based on that meeting, but I'm communicating with you saying, hey, it's swirling up here. It's on the rabbit hole. I'm here. I might bounce in and out of the conversation just because my brain's kind of rattling. And you're like, oh, I know exactly what that feeling is when I'm making complete eye contact, but my brain is racing. Thanks for letting me know. Is there anything you need from me? No? cool. We'll just keep going. If you get distracted, communicate with me. It's a completely different conversation.
It is. I mean, those are wonderful examples. And gosh, doesn't it make such a huge difference? Well, like you said, 80% of work stress is from miscommunication. And when you said that, I found myself wondering, okay, if someone, and I've noticed it's when they're out of balance, either they're not communicating something and they should, they're holding in, and like I mentioned earlier, they're getting all bitter and resentful and getting all passive aggressive, or like you pointed out, they're blasting it out inappropriately and disrespectfully. So the question is, what's the balance issue? And the way I like to teach boundaries is you have your yard that has your thoughts, feelings, and actions in it, and you're responsible for it, and you get to change that stuff. And then there's a property line and a fence, and on the other side of that fence are your neighbor's thoughts, feelings, actions that he or she is responsible for, and you cannot control those things. So it seems like sometimes we get those things reversed. So like instead of owning and honoring our own opinions and giving them words to be able to communicate in a respectful way and being responsible with our own behavior and communicating respectfully, like you said, instead we're too concerned about, well, gosh, if I say it, the other person's going to get all mad about it. They're not going to like it. They might reject me. They might not talk to me anymore. They might not include me in the lunchroom, right? And so I'm not going to say it because I'm trying to manage the other person's feelings. So it's like when you're practicing boundaries, it helps communication so much because you're honoring and taking responsibility for your own stuff, and not spending so much time over there trying to people please and keep the peace of someone else's brain, which we don't have any business trying to do. So it really helps to find that balance, like you mentioned earlier. Jessica, I know that people have heard things today. They're like, oh my gosh, how do they get a hold of you? Now, I'm going to put all the stuff that you gave me, I'm going to put it, it's going to be in the show notes.
Okay.
But I'm wondering, like, if they want to do the next step with you, if they're thinking, I really like what she has to say, I really think I need to connect with her and learn more and do more, where do you want them to go?
Yeah, of course. So depending on where you're at in your journey, couple of things. So I have free resources on my website. It's my blogs. Like you mentioned, I do have a podcast. I haven't really been on it, so I'm not as frequent on there as I've been because I've been traveling a lot more, but it is still kind of episodes are on there. If you're saying, listen, I need the next step, I have journals that are on there as well. If you're saying that you just need reminders, I have my on LinkedIn and my Instagram, Journey to Yourself 101. I just send out, reminders of how to handle your stress this week, whether it's boundary setting, what is mindfulness, all those things. And then just on my website, it's just how you can work with me, whether it's individual, if you're looking for workshops for your team or your group, I'm there for you as well.
Now, your website, I have journeytoyourself.net.
That's correct.
Okay. Make sure that I get on there. Jessica, thank you so much for spending your precious time and your energy and your expertise and your wisdom with myself and with my listeners today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening.
This is awesome. Listeners, I'm sure you've heard multiple things today from Jessica that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have a best friend. I have a family member. I have a coworker that absolutely needs to hear this podcast. They need to hear what Jessica and Dana were talking about. Take this podcast, copy and paste the link, send it through text, send it through email, put it on your favorite social media platform so that we can grow our Phoenix and Flame community and let people know you are not alone. I hope you've had a great day. I hope the rest of your day goes fantastically. I'm Dana on Phoenix and Flame.